with little things, big things. And if you fall back into reactivity, you fall back into a no, then you recognize it. Oh, there goes another no. Okay. Accept. You're unhappy, which means a story in your head telling yourself why you are unhappy and have every right to be unhappy and could not be unhappy. Everybody would be unhappy in my situation. One of the thoughts I had since childhood that went on until the age of 29, whenever something went wrong in my life, the thought came, oh yeah, always happens to me. Bad things always happen to me. Always. And they did. That was at least I knew who I was, or I thought I did, an unhappy me. And I could have told you many reasons why I had every right to be unhappy. Perhaps everybody in this room could do that. And yet, most of you have stepped out of that already. But occasionally you get drawn back into the story. Oh. So the only teaching this afternoon is presence, is that state of consciousness. The state of yes. Yes to life. That's all. Yes to life. No matter what, yes. And where's life? Here. Now. Now, you can wait for the next challenge, or you can do it now. And that's an enormous shift. You no longer need a challenge to wake you up. You are choosing to wake up. Ultimately, you are not separate from the totality, so you cannot choose. Okay. There is no separate entity, but you can, with different perspectives, different levels of looking. It is a helpful way of looking at yourself and realize that you can choose to be present now. You can choose to step out of the story of me. You can choose to step out of the heaviness of my past and the anxiety of my future and constant preoccupation with that. You can choose to say, no, I'm not having this, I'm having this, because only this is real. This is now. And so that choice is there. If you look more deeply, it may well be that when you perceive this as having choice, at that moment, something greater than you, and yet not separate from you, ultimately you, is moving through you and expressing itself. And then you say, okay, I choose presence. Good. And then every challenge that comes into your life, suddenly, instead of pulling you back into reaction, which it does usually, you can hold presence for when nothing is happening, everything is fine. You can, as somebody wrote to me, I can be spiritual when I'm sitting alone in a room. But the moment I start interacting with people, I lose it. And by divine grace, it is a fact that people are difficult quite often. They're also wonderful if you look deep enough, beautiful. But you often have to look deep underneath the surface. First you have to go underneath the surface in yourself to reach that which is underneath the surface in others. If you haven't gone deeper than the surface self in yourself, you will be relating to another surface self. One story relates to another story. And the other story of me may be a competing narrative. And whether you have a big argument or whether you get out a machine gun is only a question of degree. So this afternoon is the arising of that here. And the mind says, I don't know if it really is arising. How can you be sure that it is arising? Can you prove that it is really happening? Because, of course, it cannot be understood through thought. The very essence of this arising is something is arising that is deeper than thought. And in the intermediate stage of this, thought becomes less heavy in your life. Thought loses its capacity to make you unhappy. Thought for a while still goes on with its old records or CDs. I used to say records, and then one editor crossed it out and put in CD. I hadn't realized that the things had changed from record. But it comes to the same thing. Better sound quality doesn't make much difference as far as this is concerned. I can now hear myself much better. The unhappy story is much more clear now. So the old records come back sometimes, but an interesting thing happens. You might notice that you're not totally in it anymore. The same thoughts may still come, but there's a little bit of space between you, in fact you are the space, and the thought. This is the old thought. Oh yeah, that's happening to me, all the bad things that happen to me. And then you may find yourself smiling occasionally when an old thought, an old interpretation happens of yourself or someone else. So as this shift happens, thought loses its heaviness and